It's a Friday night and I'm laying on my bed tapping through Snapchat stories when all of a sudden I stop at a story from this guy named Spencer, who I was actually sort of friends with at the time, doing something I wish I never f***ing saw. Now, let me just tell you, as I'm watching this video that Spencer had put up, my mind is struggling to comprehend how anyone could ever bring themselves to do something as fucked up as what Spencer was doing in this video. But before I explain to you what Spencer was doing that was so horrific and unimaginable, let me give you a bit of context. So a few years ago, I started hanging out with these lads who were a couple of years older than me. We were talking 2 or 3, nothing crazy. And amongst these lads was Spencer. Now, I didn't hang around these guys too much, but every single time I would, I began to sort of notice typical behavior patterns amongst them. You know, this guy's good with the girls, this guy not so much. But I would say probably 5 or 6 months into being associated with these guys, I began to notice that Spencer was sort of the outcast, at least when it came to social situations with girls. You know, they weren't really interested in him. They always sort of looked the other way. And anytime he would be around girls, his sort of demeanor would shift up. He'd go real quiet, and if he had to talk to them, he was really awkward. Now, I can understand Spencer being awkward around girls to a certain extent. You know, you could argue that our generation have just pedestalized women and pedestalized people in general so much because of porn and because of all this, you know, digital addiction. And so I would argue that Spencer's awkwardness here was ultimately what drove him to doing what he was doing in this video. But of course, I'm getting to that. Now, a few of the lads in this group I hung out with more than others. Like, I had this one mate named Griggsy who was in that same group of boys who I hung out with heaps. I've spoken about him before. But the more I hung out with the boys when Spencer was there, I started to notice that he was very different to them, you know, very kept to himself, very standoffish. And it wasn't just around girls, it was around us as well. But I remember there would be times where I would snap Spencer on Snapchat, and he would send me photos back of him drinking by himself in his room, like no one else was there. And I always saw that to sort of be a red flag, you know, people getting smashed as getting drunk by themselves, because that to me signals that there's something bigger at play. There's something going on in their life that perhaps people don't know about, or, you know, maybe people do know about, and they're just trying to mask it with that feeling of getting, you know, alcohol is definitely not something I believe is enjoyable when you're by yourself. What's cracking, my boy? I'll let you get back to the video in just a second, but first, please hit the sub button. You have no idea how much it helps me out, and every single one of you who are subscribed are literally the ones who are helping me to make these videos possible every single day. I'll let you get back to the story, Sonny Jim. But that pretty much brings you up to speed with everything you need to know moving forward in this story. I'm laying there on my bed, looking at my phone in absolute fucking disgust, wishing I could rewind to just 10 seconds ago before I saw this so I could unsee it. The video that I'm looking at depicts Spencer sitting there on his bed, singing his own. What the actual fuck did I just watch? And so, of course, seeing this, you know, I've got a million thoughts racing through my mind. How could you film this? Better yet, how could you possibly bring yourself to post this? And it sort of clicks with me quite quickly that he didn't mean to post it, because the add to story button, very inconveniently, is right next to the save button. So he must have meant to save it, which is a whole nother fucking question in itself. Why would you save it? But I messaged Spencer. Right, by this point, the video's been on his story for about 5 or 6 minutes. If I've seen it, there's a good chance other people we know have seen it as well. And so a couple of minutes later, Spencer replies, he says, oh, like, thanks. And he takes it down. But of course, 5 or 6 minutes when you have a good amount of people on Snapchat is a long time for something of that nature to be up. You know, so many fucking people would have seen this. Like, I guarantee you at least 50 to 100 people saw it, because Spencer was one of those dudes, despite being very shy and kept to himself, he would have a lot of people on Snapchat, you know. And you know how a lot of the guys and girls my age are, it only takes like 1, 2 people to screen record something like that to pretty much end your career. But as these stories typically go, it doesn't end there. So over the next week and a half, I don't see Spencer anywhere. You know, he's not hanging out with the boys that he usually is. I'm not seeing him in his typical friend group. I just have not seen this dude. It's like he disappeared off the face of the earth. But I think we can all understand why, right? Even just the thought of hanging around people, you know, your closest friends, hanging around people that you just know in general, after they had seen something so private and so intimate that no one other than yourself should ever have seen, would be a very uncomfortable and very awkward feeling. So I could understand why he didn't want to show his face anywhere. But it gets to like 2 weeks after this whole thing had taken place, and I start seeing Spencer more and more around. You know, he's hanging out with his usual friend group, and I don't think many people had much to say about it. You know, his closest friends obviously saw it, given that I saw it as well. They don't really say anything. I remember one of them was calling him Blick, which, you know, it's pretty fucked up. And bro, it's these types of situations that can genuinely drive young men to themselves, because I've seen things, you know, in the media like talking about things that have happened similarly to this. The only difference between Spencer's situation and the situation of these other guys was the fact that Spencer didn't get picked on for it, right? There weren't people making fun of him, telling him that, you know, how fucked up it was and making fun of him for it. Now, although I didn't understand how he could bring himself to do something like that, I understood his situation and how he would be feeling, in a sense, you know, that deep sense of shame. Because it really made me think back to just a few months prior, right, in June, when I was downtown with my girlfriend one day, and we were hanging out in like this secluded fire exit stairwell where like literally no one would go. And as we're hanging out there, after, you know, like an hour goes by, one thing sort of leads to another, and we get a little bit more, I'll just say, close with one another. And just as we were, I'll just say, wrapping up the performance, a security guard walks in and witnesses something that, quite frankly, no one should ever have to witness. And it was in this moment that there was just a fucking huge wave of like shame and guilt go over my whole body. Not because of what I had just done, but because of the fact that this dude had walked in and witnessed something that was so private. And so I could bear sympathy for the situation that Spencer was in. I didn't understand it, but I understood how he felt. Now, looking back on this whole sort of time period of my life now, I can only imagine the sort of mindset and frame of mind that Spencer would have had to have been in to bring himself to do something like that. I know I've said this sort of similar thing consistently throughout the video, but bro, I feel like to do those sorts of things, you have to have a deep level of disrespect and almost a sense of resentment towards yourself to want to do that, right? It's the same with watching porn. You know, you're watching some other dude, your dream girl, when it could be you doing that, right? There's so many forms of fake intimacy and all of this digital shit in the world these days. And so I think it's just, now it's more easy than ever to just become addicted to something which is so fake. And as a result of these, you know, fake dopamine sources, these fake dopamine spikes, you respect yourself less, right? As soon as you finish watching porn, you regret it. As soon as you wake up sleep deprived for school or work because, you know, you scrolled the night before, you regret it. It's all of these very instant pleasures that make you feel good in the moment, but actually take away from your future self. I always put it as you're stealing happiness from your future self. You know, if you do drugs, you drink alcohol, you watch porn, you're saying yes to yourself in the moment. You're saying yes to your pleasure centers in the moment, but thereby taking that from your future self, making your future self feel worse off and be worse off because of those choices that you make right then and there. I think that's very much a case of what Spencer had done here. He wasn't thinking about the potential consequences that could follow this. And to tie this all together, my belief is that Spencer had only gotten to this point, one, because he was awkward, but two, because he lacked that intimacy and that connection in his own life. And so he felt the need to go and do something as disgraceful and disturbing as what he did do. And I'm not going to sit here and act like that's not a natural human desire. You know, we all crave intimacy. We all desire to be loved and wanted by someone someday. And I just feel that Spencer had gotten to the point where he didn't think that that was an option for him. And so he was doing what he was doing in that video. Now, that's not the same thing. I remember like a year after this situation had gone down, I had some of my own photos leaked to a few of the lads who I used to be mates with. And, you know, I wasn't super embarrassed at the time. I didn't particularly care. But it did sort of feel like a violation of privacy knowing that something so private had been shared publicly. You know what I mean? And it didn't affect me mentally in many ways whatsoever, but a lot of young dudes it does. And I know a lot of dudes who have had that happen to them and ended up with some serious mental problems. So I just want this to serve as sort of a lesson to the younger lads out there to really think about what you're doing with your digital footprint, right? Because it's one of those things you can't take back. It exists out there forever. Like these videos I'm making, I understand that there are risks involved, you know, so you really need to understand the risks of what you do put out there onto social media, whether it be actually posting something or just sending it to a person that you think you might trust. Really put some thought into it and use your fucking brain. Don't use your emotions, all right? We are emotional beings, but be logical, okay? Because logic is what will save you in most situations. But I hope you enjoyed this video, bro. I hope you gained some valuable insight. Perhaps you walk away with a fresh perspective. With that said, I'll see you in the next one. Hit the sub button, smash the fucking like, and as always, stay grinding, my G.